Hello, my YouTube world. This is Johnny Mow coming to you with a special video here today. This video is going to encapsulate all the mowers that I bought over the years and the reasons why I bought them and how I got to where I am today. After having an exchange with Lawn Farmer on the last video, he kind of was riding me a little bit about, you're right, the decision-making process and this and that. I know he was just jabbing me and trying to get under my skin, but when I thought about it, I was like, you know what, I could do a video on this, and it might help some younger people out, and why I bought what I bought, and, the reasons why I bought it, and some of the mistakes I made. Maybe you can avoid some of those mistakes. So we're going to go all the way back to 1996 when I first started. I got a job working for a landscape company, and we used, at that time, commercial Toro belt drive walk behinds with sulkies attached. They were the jungle gyms, and that we cut everything with them. We had a 52-inch 18 horsepower Kohler, and we had a 14 horsepower 44-inch Toro. They were the old decks. They bent easy. They were just a mess, but that's what we used. We cut so much grass with that stuff. Made a lot of money with that stuff back then. Well, during that year, I decided to start my own, so I picked up a couple small lawns, on the side where I lived at. I just used a Craftsman mower or whatever I could get my hands on in my garage. And so the following year would be 1997. And you got to remember, back then, walk behinds is everything everybody used. There wasn't very many zero turns. They weren't popular. There were some guys here who had John Deere tractors. They used those. But overall, everyone used basically Toro walk behinds. Toro ruled the roost. The Toro T-bar system was just a phenomenal system. And the transmissions were only like $230 back then. So if your tranny went, you just pulled one out, put one in, and that was the end of it. But 1997, the guy I worked for bought an Exmark, and it had a Tri-Advantage deck on it. And I was old school. I just thought you know what, guys, you use that. I don't want to use it. I'm faster with this thing. Well, one time, the 52-inch walk behind went down, and we ended up having to use, I had to use the zero turn. And I couldn't believe the time I was saving. The quality cut was 10 times better than the Toro. Exmark ruled the roost. Exmark just came onto the scene and blew every other market out of the water. They destroyed everybody. It seemed like everyone I knew had an Exmark here. All of a sudden, zero turns were popping up. Within the next 3 years, zero turns were on every trailer. Walk behinds were a thing that you used if you had hillsides or a backup to your zero turn. So in the meantime, in the next few years, what happened was I was building my side business up, and what happened was I started to need a zero turn because I was picking up some lawns that were a little bit bigger in nature. I had a 36-inch Toro walk-behind T-bar system, belt drive, and I had 21-inch push mower, and I was getting tired of walking the 36. I had a couple lawns that would take me a long time to cut, so I ended up getting a 52-inch, and here's the mistake that I made right off the bat. I went with Toro, and at the time, they had a Superflow system deck on it. And I was kind of short on funds, so the Exmark was running between 7, 5, 8. I mean, they were getting premium dollars back then. The 52-inch Superflow system with a 20 horsepower Kohler ran me 6, and there you have it. So I went with the Superflow system, and instantly what I found out right away, I always side discharge. I did bag with the 36-inch. I did buy a side plate, bagged really well. But as I went along with the Superflow system, and we're coming up to a point that changed my whole direction in the mowing business and the way I did things, because this is a point that I want to stress to you. I went for about a year and a half with no bagger on that Superflow system. The deck was just terrible. It couldn't side discharge worth of poop, and I tried everything. I had one property in particular I still have to this day. It took me 3 hours to cut it. And so I got fed up with all the double, triple cutting with this deck. And so I bought a bagger. And that bagger was an upright bagger. And what I mean by that is that the grass would go in, the reel would reel it up and toss it up into there, the little propeller. Now that's an upright. Now there's horizontal baggers that are like this. They sit like this and they create air by spinning the fan, and then it comes in and it creates more airflow. The upright baggers allowed me to bag early in the morning. It allowed me to bag right after a rainstorm, and those baggers bagged anything. I mean, I could take 12-inch grass down to 3.5-inch without worrying about a thing. Key point here, decision I made. When I took that property, it was 3 hours. When I bagged it only took me an hour and a half. I became a bagging lawn care company. Instantly, overnight, I transformed my truck and I bagged everything. From then on in, it was bag, 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 because it was so much faster. I didn't have to deal with anything. I didn't have to worry about slopping stuff up onto a deck. I didn't have to worry about hitting. I didn't have to go 3 passes around. And it just changed my whole outlook, because that decision right there, when I bought that bagger, affects me even till today, as soon as two years ago. And now follow me as we go to the progression of the company. We went from a side discharging mainly. Now we are just simply bagging. We bag everything. Truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of grass. At the time, I had a great place to dump. It was on the other side of town. It was a big ravine. I had no idea within 1 decade or 15 years that I would fill this ravine. I had no idea how much I was using it. But regardless of that, let's get back on point. So I bought that mower for $6,000, bought a bagger for $1,500, had it installed, loved it, put about 1,200 hours, never had one issue with that mower. I ended up buying, I wanted to upgrade because my properties were getting bigger and I started to grow and I was going out on my own by this time. So I bought a Toro Turbo Force. At the time, Toro bought out Exmark. So what they did is they switched their deck up to the Turbo Force deck using the Exmark blades, using basically their spindle and basically their back baffle design. Well, when I seen that, I loved the Exmark. I just, at the time, couldn't afford it when I first started, so I ended up trying to save some money, became a bagging company, so I bought the Toro Turbo Force with a 3-bagger. And now I had a double bagger on my little Toro, but I had a 3-bagger on the big Toro. And what happened was I became even more of a bagger. What I did find out though, on some of these massive properties, I just couldn't bag the whole thing. I would take it off. What I found out is a Turbo Force cut just as good as an Exmark. And I thought, wow, this is just phenomenal. So I had the best of both worlds. Now, here we go. At 400 hours, I went through my first pump. Ended up getting it replaced. At 800 hours, I went through a pump and wheel motor. Toro paid for it, was still under warranty. 900 hours, went through another pump. And then at 1100 hours, I was going through another pump and wheel motor. So I was a little perturbed at this. I mean, I felt like every 400 hours I was going through a pump. Turned out, what we know now, we didn't know then, is the triple baggers plus my weight and all the weights that were on the mower were heating up those pumps too much. They just couldn't take all that bagging grass. But I wasn't willing to give it up, because in my mind, 3 hours down to an hour and a half, plus I was just, you get in and out of a property and, but you have to remember, I was also in my early 20s back then. I'm 42 now. It was 20 years ago. I was probably 22, 23 at the time. 24 when I was doing all this. Lots of energy, could toss those bags right up onto a truck. No big deal. I had no idea. And this is the thing that I'm trying to wanting to teach some of you, that in your 20s you could do a lot more, like jumping off the side of a truck. Boy, I jump right down, throw those bags back on, bring it back up. I don't jump off trucks anymore. My knees hurt. And that's something that's different. All you young guys, jumping down or squatting on cement, putting your knees on cement. You have no idea that in probably 15 years, you're going to wish you never did that. But let me get back on track here. So what I ended up doing is, when it went into the shop to fix the pump and wheel motor, I decided to upgrade to a diesel mower. It had 16cc pumps, and rethought that would settle the issue that I had, because I liked Toro, everything I liked about them. It was great, 10 minutes from my house. Well, what ended up happening is I bought the diesel because I was demoing the diesel when my mower was down. And so I loved it. It was fast. Well, when we put all the bagging gear onto it, then this diesel mower became a really huge tank. And wouldn't you know, within 25 hours, a pump went out. Took it back. They said it was a fluke. Don't worry about it. Got it back. Within 10 hours, the other side went out. They're like, oh, we'll fix this, you know. Blah, blah, blah. So I got it back within an hour. The other pump that they replaced started slipping. Like when you push forward, you can hear it. So I was like, listen, I don't want this. You know, Toro's pumps, or something's wrong here. I don't feel comfortable. I want my money back. And so they brought some Toro guy in. He wasn't the rep, but he was above the rep. I guess he would have been a regional rep. He was up from Florida. He handled that whole side of the state, I guess. He came up to try to talk me. As soon as he came up to me, I understand you flew in. I understand everything, but if you're going to try to talk me to keep this, you've wasted your time. And so he just turned around and said, give him his money back. That's exactly what he did. Toro didn't give me any trouble. My dealer ended up giving my money back, and they ended up selling that mower, and they never had a problem because I stripped all the bagger off. Well, now I needed a mower. So what I did is I ended up going up to another dealer that sold Exmark. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go to Exmark. We're going to get this over with. Let's just go. Well, at the time, Exmark came out with the Triton deck. So the Triton deck, which we didn't know at the time, was their worst deck. It might have been outside of the Superflow system deck and the John Deere deck. It might have been the worst deck I've ever used. So I ended up buying a Triton deck. I ended up using it. I went from a triple bagger down to a double bagger. That I didn't like spending over $10,000. That mower was like 11.6 with the bagger. Wasn't very comfortable doing that, but I did it. It was an Exmark. I thought, you know what? Let's go back, you know, back to the good old days. Back in the day, everyone was running Exmark too. No one, I mean, Exmark ruled the roost here. Just by far, killed everyone. And right now, Exmark still rules the roost, but I think Ferris has come a long way, and I see a lot of Ferrises out there. As a matter of fact, this last year, Ferris outsold Exmark at that same dealer. I mean, it was like 8-1. So Ferris is really starting to take over here. Toro too, but Exmark ruled the roost for many, many, many years. And so Exmark, I ended up blowing a pump out at 75 hours. This thing could not bag grass. It just kept clogging on me. I blew the pump out, and you couldn't side discharge. The Triton deck just could not side discharge northern grass. And they ended up doing away with it because I guess it did really good down in the south with centipede and all that. But up here, it just could not side discharge this thick, wet grass, this high grass. It did a terrible job. So the Triton deck was out. I ended up selling that, took an $800 loss on it because it was that bad of a mower. So what I had to do is I'm stuck now. Exmark's running Triton, and they stunk. You know, Toro, I had some issues with the pumps, wasn't comfortable, and now I'm like, what do I do here? I need a mower. I'm still using my old Toro, and you know, I was afraid the pump was going to go bad at any time, so I took a chance on a Ferris. So as you can see where the progression comes here. So I ended up going to Ferris, but when I was looking for a mower, now you got to remember the decision I made to buy that bagger now comes into play. I wanted an upright bagger, and at the time it was Ferris. Toro had just switched their baggers back to a not an upright but a horizontal because they're using Exmark baggers on the Toro. So I ended up getting there was Scag and Ferris had the upright baggers, and I'm like, and Bobcat did too. So I'm thinking there was no Bobcat dealers here. I'm thinking, you know what? I want an upright bagger because I already know they can bag anything, and I needed to be able to bag anything. And I needed to be able to, because my lawns literally, they grow 10 inches. You cut them down to 3 3/4, 4 inches. You can't play around. And so I needed that. So I bought a Ferris with an upright bagger, and it had the old squared off deck. And I bought that year in August. And it was dry out, so I didn't know that it had a side discharging issue in wet grass. I had no idea because it was August. It was kind of dry. It was bagging beautifully. Loved it. Just the thing I noticed about the Ferris more than anything was that it was just, I had so much energy at the end of the day. This thing flew. I mean, compared to my Toro, I could literally go down a street and run a circle around my Toro. That's how fast this thing was. I mean, it was like one of the first mowers that came out that can go 12 mile an hour. I mean, I clocked it with a GPS at 13 miles an hour. I mean, I had the hydros adjusted the whole way out. It was just flying. This mower was phenomenal. I loved it. You can fly over bumps. Didn't feel a thing. It was cutting my times down. This mower was unbelievable. And I just loved it. And because I bagged a lot, I didn't worry about the side discharging issues. I side discharged when I had to. I waited till it dried. This thing would bag 12 inches of grass down to nothing. I mean, it never had an issue with it. I mean, I put 40, but I think it was 4790 or 4970. It's one of those numbers. Astronomical amount of hours on it. Just crazy. I think I replaced 2 wheel motors in there. And I had to weld the back a little bit here and there. But, I mean, after 4,700 hours, I mean, come on. I mean, what do you expect? You know, so I'm now in the Ferris line. So I'm now getting very large in lawn care. You know, before that, it was just me. And now we've grown, so I'm starting to hire. We're starting to run 2 crews. So I needed to get another mower. The problem was when you grow, and now I've taken on employees and paying them legitimately, meaning I was actually doing it the right way, I needed something economical. And at the time, Ferris just seemed to be taking off. What they ended up doing was they ended up, raising their prices because the mowers were taking off. And I just felt like by the time you bought the mower plus the bagger, we're up to 12, 5, 13 now. I'm like, whoa. I mean, I bought that as a demo, my Ferris as a demo off the guy because they wouldn't come demo it. I ended up calling the rep. The rep come out. They brought me 2 Wright standers and the Ferris, because they sold Ferris and Wright together, 2 different brands. They brought me I demoed the Wright and the Ferris at the same time. And I think I bought that mower, it was under 11. I think it was actually 10.6, the same as my, because it was a demo, I think it had like 100 hours on it or something like that. It gave me a great deal. And I bought it right off his truck. It came out of his truck. I bought it right out of the truck. And that was just a mower that he drove around and, let people use. But now I'm in the Ferris line. And so I ended up buying, backup mower is I ended up buying a Simplicity. Simplicity was the same as my Ferris. It was a Cobalt. I had a few issues with it. It wasn't quite as fast as my Ferris. Didn't understand. It was same everything, but it wasn't. I had a pump issue with it right off the bat, and so I'm starting to get bigger. I need some reliable equipment, so I sold the Simplicity right away. I just had a feeling whether it was made on Monday morning or Friday afternoon, something was wrong with it. I sold it. And I ended up, at that time, was when the ICD deck come out. Now, you got to understand, in this time, I am demoing like Hustler. I'm demoing John Deere. I ruled those 2 out right away. The cutting capacity. At that time, I demoed the John Deere Quick Track. Horrible, horrible mower up here in the Northeast. Just horrendous. I actually used it to cut one of my customers' lawn. He came out when I was done and said, please don't ever bring that mower back here again. I mean, it just totally crushed this lawn. So I ended up taking at the time, because my Ferris was down, I ended up taking my Toro off and just, cleaning it up because I still had that 52 as a backup. So I, just cleaned it all up with the 52. I demoed Hustler. I can't remember everything I demoed back in those days. It was just like a wild race those 2 years. But what happened was I ended up hiring a guy who actually knew how to run a 0-turn, and we needed 3 0-turns. So I needed something economical because we were growing, but I was shelling out a lot of money, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on the mower because I love that Ferris. That Ferris was, to me, it worked fine. We were bagging. So I'm bagging away. So I buy the ICD deck just came out, so I buy the Snapper Pro ICD deck. And the only reason why I did this because it was basically Briggs and Stratton brought Simplicity, Ferris, and Snapper Pro all in one mix. So they were basically making everything was the same except for the shocks. So I ended up buying a 32 Vanguard with an ICD deck. And right away, I bought the same bagger. Everything was fine. I thought, man, we're going to be going out. We're double bagging. We both had triple baggers. We're going to kill it. I'd picked up 2 HOAs, 2 condo units, and we were just killing. I was work left and right. And that mower ended up being down for like, I can't remember. Like, I think it was a month. I'd have to go back and read the lawn site post. And it was down. The ICD deck could not cut. It was the first ICD deck. They ended up coming out with 3 generations of the ICD deck, which they didn't tell it was a generation, but they kept making tweaks to it. And so I got rid of that deck. I had them send me the old style deck like my Ferris, and we just went at it. No issues. No problems at all with the Snapper Pro at all. Just bagging away. Loved the bagger. Just had a great time. Well, in the meantime, we're piling up hours. Now we're piling up. That year I put on 900 hours on my Ferris, and we were putting a lot of hours on the Snapper Pros now. So the Ferris was getting to the point now around 4,000 hours where I put a pump in it, and it was just giving me, I remember the summer I got rid of it. It was in the shop more than it was just everything. I had to weld it. Overhead gasket was leaking. The pump went. It seemed like it just was tired. The shocks, the one shock was a little bent. The deck level adjustment wasn't quite right. It was off a little bit. But I loved the mower so much, I just didn't care. So I ended up finally getting rid of that. I ended up selling it to a guy who was a farmer. He bought it. And I ended up buying a 52-inch Snapper Pro. A couple years that went by, they assured me ICD deck could handle. And again, remember, the price was right. I wanted to keep these mowers under $10,000. I didn't want to go up there. So I ended up buying this 52-inch, and everything worked fine. The bagging system worked fine. The deck, I loved the way it was side discharging. I'm thinking, wow, this mower's phenomenal. One thing, just one little drawback. You know what it was? I messed up. I bought a 52-inch, and my times I noticed from last year to this year went down a little bit, so I was a little unproductive with it. I thought it'd be a great niche mower. I thought, I just thought it would be, and it wasn't. The 52-inch was just too small. I had too many big properties, and I needed a 61. So basically, what I ended up doing is I ended up buying a 61 Snapper Pro, which you see out in the garage. And I felt like the 52-inch seemed like it side discharged beautifully. It bagged nicely. I thought that they fixed everything. Well, then comes the Snapper Pro, which I had all kinds of trouble with. Had no idea, had to take the turbo baffle out, had to change the blades. It's just all kinds of issues with the 61-inch. Don't know why it was such a big difference. Around this time, I had bagged so much that I filled up the place where I was dumping, and a lot of my on-site places that I had been dumping at, it started to get out of hand. I started to get a couple customer complaints like, hey Johnny, I don't want you dumping here no more. It just looks unsightly back there. And a lot of that was my employee's fault because he was lazy and he kept dumping over top of each other, where I like to take those bags and whip them out like that. And he just didn't do that. And I started getting complaints about bagging. And I noticed some of the other guys in town weren't bagging as much anymore. And I'm like, so I'd call him like, how do you get away with that? And he said, we just do it. We just got tired of, and I was tired of jumping up on the truck and just dumping. And just, I was getting older, guys. I got tired of dumping grass, unhook the trailer because, it's sitting in the driveway, and then your wife will come up, John, would you dump that truck? It stinks so bad. Oh, God, get that out of here. And then the kid's like, Dad, dude, that's nasty. It was nasty. So I started calling the other guys, and I started saying, you know what, guys, I'm tired of bagging. What did you do? Some guys were bagged for years, and they just quit. That was the end of it. No more bagging. I didn't know how they were able to do that. And so in the dry season, I started side discharging, ripping the bagging systems off, and going like that. And I discovered, hey, man, once I fixed those fixed the ICD deck, this thing side discharged wonderfully. And so now I have 3 Snapper Pros, and I like them, and they were just economical. They weren't the most comfortable to ride. They weren't the worst either. So, I just remember the Ferris, no problems really. It was a lot of money, and at the time I was trying to save money. I didn't know how I was going to be able to pay my guy top money and buy all this equipment, because we grew so fast in that little, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'll buy that mower, I'll buy that mower. I remember one time both mowers went down and we had 1-0 turn. I'm like, I need another mower. And so in the midst of all the chaos of the growing and the 2 crews and the landscaping and the mower sagas, the decks and everything that was going on, my foreman just got crazy. And I had to let him go. Right then, I downsized the business. I realized I was in over my head. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I was working so much, just mowers out the ink. I had everything. One year we were all Echo. One year we were all redmax, and just the weed eater's carburation problem. Before, I used to just go buy Echoes. You go buy Echoes, the gray stuff back in the day, they'd last 10 years, you'd throw them away. I was getting like 1.5 years out of a weed whacker. And granted, we were killing these things, but still, it just didn't seem like they were making them right. So I got real mad at Echo, and I went and bought all redmax. I just, screw all that Echo stuff. So I went and bought all redmax. Well, didn't you know, the redmax did the same thing. And I ended up paying like $100 for the carburetor. It happened twice. And I just get rid of this. Got rid of all the redmax stuff. Then I went back to Echo. I'm just going to go back to Echo. I'm familiar with it. I still had some pieces. Went back to Echo. You understand it. You're making all these decisions literally as you're on the fly. You're just running, you're growing, you're trying to find help, you're trying to keep people, you're trying to make every customer happy, you're just growing. Everything is just so wild. You're making all these decisions, and then the foreman quits. I let him go. He didn't show up for work on the one Saturday, and then I called him, and he came to work, and he was giving me attitude, and the next Saturday he didn't show up again. Well, that was it. I had an employee handbook, and he was well over his point, so I just let him go, and then I downsized the business, sold the 52, just sold that 52, sold the 60-inch, and I bought the Toro last year. And you're up to date because you see that I had the Toro with the suspension seat. I did demo that quite a bit, so I'm back with Toro. But after all the dilemma, the one mower that I really liked was the Ferris. But I will say, that ICD deck, having to do everything I did to it, kind of sways me not to want to go that way. But after I fixed the ICD deck, it's a great mower. I just changed the blades out. That's all I had to do. So, and that's why I made that video, to tell you about some of the fixes that I found with the ICD deck. And you obviously know about the Scag. And I'll go back a little bit. So I was starting to transition from bagging to non-bagging. So what I was doing is I was going through and I was trying to find the best side discharging mower. There was one mower that kept coming up. It could cut good and wet grass and good high grass, and that was the Scag Velocity deck. And I just kept hearing, so I went and demoed it, and I thought, I cut a little bit with it. I'm like, this might be the ticket. Well, as soon as I got it up here, I only put 18 hours on it, and I realized right away this deck could not handle what we were doing up here. I don't know why. Maybe it's good other places, but double and triple cutting is a waste of my time. I would rather bag the lawn than lose money double and triple cutting. And that's what I had to do with that Scag. It's double, sometimes triple cut. And that brings back bad memories of that 3-hour property with that Superflow system deck. Just not going to happen. And you got to understand my age, I just didn't want to bag anymore. I just hate lifting up bags onto my truck or going to the woods and carrying them back to the back. It's just a tough situation. So having said that, I went on a search for the best side discharging mower. And it come back to this. For the Northeast, it came back to the Exmark, it came back to the Toro, and the ICD deck for me. So the Exmark was just too expensive. Just being real with you, the Exmark was $13,000 without the bagger for the particular model that I wanted and felt comfortable on. The Toro without the bagger was 9.2. I don't have a bagger on it. It was 9.2, and it was comfortable. That particular model was comfortable. And then the Ferris was about 8.8. Here's why I did not buy the Ferris. The Ferris had just came out with the EFI, and I wanted an EFI because these Vanguards, 36 and 32, you can just, it's like going down the highway and putting gas, you're just spilling gas, right? I mean, they drink so much gas. So I wanted to go with an EFI to try to save some, and I wanted a side discharging mower. I knew I was keeping the ICD deck because of the bagging system. If I ever got in trouble, I knew I could have it. So the ICD deck, that EFI just came out, and I waited a few months to see if there was any issues because I learned my lesson. Excuse me. Don't buy first generation mowers because generally you're the research and development you're the research and development R&D department for them. They go outside, they cut their fields beside them, and then all of a sudden, you find all the problems and they fix them. Well, I wanted to wait on this EFI. Turned out there was an issue with the EFI. So I knew I needed a mower, and what I did is I went with the Toro because I didn't trust the EFI because I had trouble with the Vanguards. And I just didn't trust them, so I went with Toro. Very happy with the Toro. I do miss that ride of the Ferris. And as I've gotten older, guys, that's what I miss, is that ride. I had more energy at the end of the day. It didn't beat you up. The Toro rides better than the ICD, the Snapper Pro, but I still like right now I have a little bit of kidney pain because of the lawns that I'm cutting and different things like that. That's my story. That's why I came to the whole conclusion of everything, that one decision, buying that bagger, finding how productive I was. And I was young, I was strong. Now I'm a little bit older. I'm still strong, but I'm not as strong. I get a little bit more tired. I can't work 12, 13, 14, 15 hours anymore, and it wears on you. And that's what I want to tell you guys. When I was in the heat of growing, I was just buying all this crazy stuff, and I hope that answers some questions, and I hope that you got some pointers out of that. And everything that you do in this business, it just affects you. That's a 20-year span of my life with mowers and the equipment that I bought. Mostly everything I bought was on the fly. It was just like, hey, a weed eater went down. The one year I went all redmax because I got tired of Echo. I was replacing Echoes anyway, so I went to a show. I just went up there, got a decent deal on all the redmax. The redmax dealer was there, so that's what I did. Just got all redmax right there. Had those same issues. And so I went back to Echo. I bought all, I sold all the redmax stuff, bought all new Echoes. Figured I'm going to start this year out right. I got great mowers. We're buying all new Echoes. So what happened was the 266T was heavy, and everyone was used to using that redmax light. And so I started having some issues, like my shoulder hurts, or I couldn't weed whack, or the speed wasn't there like before because it's such light trimmers with the redmax. Well, I ended up giving in and buying Huskies. Saying I'll just buy you a Husky, put it on the trailer. Well, I ended up using the Husky, and I ended up liking how light it was and what it could do. So that's why you've seen Husky for the last few years. And then finally, and that Echo was good equipment. The PB770 I thought was good. It's equal to the 660, the 600, BR600. When you put the 770 and the 600 in a leaf pile, they blow the same amount. You can't tell a difference. Now you put the 8500 in there, 8500 will blow that leaf pile a little bit further. But for the most part, I ended up, as I got older, I just liked the lighter stuff. So when I seen Stihl had the 94R, I decided to go with that. That's why I went with that. It was basically because it was light. And I was already buying some Stihl stuff here and there. And I just don't like rainbow stuff. I never did. If I had all Snapper Pro, I didn't really want to see my I didn't want to see my Toro and my Snapper Pro in the trailer. It's just my little idiosyncrasy. I just liked having, you know, Snapper Pro and Snapper Pro, or Ferris and Ferris, or Toro. Like right now in my trailer is my Toro 30 and my Toro, and I just like how it's matched up. It's just my little thing. Everyone has their own little quirks. That was just my little thing. Hey guys, this video is really long. If you're still in here at the 35-minute mark, you know, just give me a shout out and say 35 minutes. If you listen to me for 35 minutes, that's pretty good, man. I appreciate you guys for subscribing. We're almost at 4,000. I just noticed the other day. I appreciate you guys subscribing, and even the people that get on me a little bit. I just wanted to give you a little history of Johnny's Mowing, where we come from, how we made all the decisions we did, and where we're at now. You know, and right now I'm a side discharging company. I bagged about 2 weeks this year. I'm trying very hard not to bag at all, and I hope to get to the point where I don't bag at all, no matter what. And the Turbo Force has really helped me do that. It has helped me become a side discharging company, and that's what I want to be. I don't want to sit and bag and dump, and all those nights traveling to find a dump spot, or going to my place, filling up that place, realizing I was paying to dump grass. And so now it's very nice coming home and not hearing the wife say, Johnny, get that truck out of here, it stinks, it stinks, it stinks, oh God. And I don't blame her, but hey, that's my time. Hope you enjoyed this. Any questions? You know, and listen, please, some of you guys are asking the same questions. Like I did a video the other day about the BR700, and then some guy asked me the question about the video. Like, I just answered every one of those questions in that video.